We're living in a world that is absolutely powered by data, right? Companies are collecting info on us all the time to, figure us out. But who's watching out for us? Who's protecting that information? Well, that's what we're digging into today. We're looking at this huge clash between the endless hunger of big data and these powerful rules, the GDPR, that are designed to put you back in the driver's seat.
All right, let's just jump right in with a question that really gets to the core of this whole thing. Let's say a company builds a predictive model using your data. Who actually owns it? Is it the company that spent all that time and money building the model? Or is it you, the person who, created the data in the first place? It's a super tricky question, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack here.
So, to get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 4 main chunks. First up, we'll talk about big data's massive appetite. Then we'll crack open the GDPR rulebook to see what it's all about. After that, we'll get into the whole AI dilemma. And finally, we'll wrap up with what this all means for you, your data, and your rights.
All right, let's kick things off with big data's big appetite. Seriously, you can think of it like this giant, hungry machine that's always learning. And what does it eat? Information. Specifically, your personal information. The more it eats, the smarter and more powerful it gets. And this machine is getting fed by stuff we use every single day. Your social media, it's tracking your habits. That smartwatch or fitness tracker on your wrist, it's sending out location and sensor data. Every time you swipe your credit card, it tells a story about your spending. And yeah, those apps on your phone, they can track pretty much your every move. All of this stuff is personal data, and believe me, it is incredibly valuable. In this slide, wow, it lays out the central conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got big data, which basically wants to hoard everything. It wants huge volumes of data, and it wants to keep it forever. But then, on the other side, GDPR comes in and just slams on the brakes. It says, whoa, hold on a second. It requires something called data minimization, which just means only collect what you absolutely need. And it gives you the power to ask for your data to be deleted. These two ideas, they're just complete opposites.
So, okay, how do we even begin to manage this clash of titans? Well, that brings us right to our next section. Let's go inside the GDPR rulebook. This is the set of laws that's trying to tame that big data beast and, more importantly, put the power back where it belongs, with you. So, what is GDPR anyway? The letters stand for the General Data Protection Regulation. Basically, it's this game-changing law that came out of the European Union, and its whole purpose, its one mission in life, is to protect the personal data of its citizens. And here's the really crucial part. Its rules have a global reach.
It officially became a thing back on May 25, 2018. But here's the real kicker, the part that changed everything. It doesn't matter one bit where the company is based. If a business in, say, Sri Lanka, or right here in the US, or anywhere on the planet, is processing data from someone in the EU, guess what? They have to play by GDPR's rules, period.
And what happens if they don't? Well, the penalties are absolutely massive. We are talking about fines of up to 20 million euros, or even scarier for big companies, 4% of their entire global annual revenue, whichever one is bigger. Now that is a number that makes every CEO on the planet sit up and pay very, very close attention.
When you boil it all down, GDPR is really built on a few core ideas. 1, you have to collect data legally. 2, you have to be totally transparent about how you're going to use it. 3, this idea of data minimization. Only take what you need. 4, don't just hang on to data forever. And 5, probably the most obvious one, you have to protect the data you hold. It's really just common sense, but written into law.
Okay, so just when you think you've got a handle on it, things get even trickier. Let's talk about the AI and data dilemma. Because what happens when it's not a person looking at your data and making a call? What happens when it's a machine, an algorithm, making huge decisions about your life?
The second you bring AI into the mix, it complicates every single part of GDPR. I mean, sure, we see some familiar ideas here like security and transparency, but AI brings up these brand new, tough questions. Like, who's accountable when an algorithm gets it wrong? And how do you even protect your rights when you're up against an automated decision? It's a really, really delicate balancing act.
A big part of the problem is that AI can feel like a total black box. It's often really hard, sometimes impossible, to explain exactly how the machine reached its conclusion. Plus, these models can accidentally soak up and even amplify the biases that are already in the data they're trained on. And that's why GDPR is so insistent on things like having a human in the loop
And, most importantly, getting your clear consent before an AI ever touches your data. And this is where GDPR hands you some real power. Let me give you a perfect example. Let's say a bank's AI goes through your financial history and denies you a loan. Under GDPR, you have the right to demand an explanation. You have the right to ask why. Why did the machine say no? That's a game changer.
Okay, so this all brings us to our final and maybe most important section. This is where we get down to brass tacks. What does this all mean for you? Let's talk about your data, your rights, and how GDPR really puts you in control.
Think of these as your new superpowers in the digital age. For real, you have the right to access your data, to ask a company, hey, what do you have on me? You have the right to rectification, which just means you can fix any info that's wrong. You have the right to erasure, this is the famous right to be forgotten, and you have the right to portability, which means you can literally pick up your data and take it with you to another service. So on a practical level, how do companies actually do this? How do they protect your data? Well, they've got a whole toolkit of tech solutions. There's pseudonymization, for instance. That's a fancy word for replacing your real name with a random ID, so you can't be easily identified. They also use heavy-duty encryption to basically scramble your data, and super strict access controls so only the right people can ever lay eyes on it. And let's be clear, these aren't just nice-to-haves. They're the absolute cost of doing business today. You know, after going through all this complexity, the laws, the tech, the AI, it really all boils down to one simple, powerful, golden rule. If you don't need it, don't store it. That's it. That's the heart of data privacy right there. It's a challenge to every single company out there, and it's a fundamental right for every single one of us. So it leaves us with a pretty important question to think about. What data is being stored about you right now that isn't truly needed?